Hey everyone, Blake Lovell, Southeastern 14, back here to discuss the SEC Tournament Semifinals and a lot of interesting developments on Friday in the quarterfinals, and that has left us with our final four for this tournament, as it will be Alabama taking on Missouri in the top part of the bracket, and Vanderbilt and Texas A&M in the bottom part. So let's jump into these matchups. We start with Alabama against Missouri. The Tide, as we kind of talked about going into it, it was one where you really thought Mississippi State needed to play sort of the perfect game. I thought to be able to beat Alabama. That did not happen. Mississippi State just could not get any sort of sustained offense going, and of course that's not been an unusual thing this season for the Bulldogs. Could not make shots from outside, really could not make a lot of shots anywhere. They went 1 of 13 from three, 17 of 45 from two. And, still got the offensive rebounds, picked up 14. And we talked about how important that could be in that game. But really, again, just the element of not having any sort of shooting. I put out the stat on Twitter, came into the game as the worst 3-point shooting team in the country, went 1 of 13 to stay as the worst 3-point shooting team as the country in the country. And against a team like Alabama, you've got to shoot the ball well. And Mississippi State did not. Now, once again, give credit to Alabama too, because they forced Mississippi State to take a lot of those shots and basically at times dared them to take jump shots versus getting the ball inside to Toulouse Smith and trying to just let him beat you. And Alabama did not let that happen. So the Tide hit 13 threes of their own. And I know people sometimes can look at it and say Alabama's very reliant on the three. And I don't know if reliance necessarily the right word. I think it's just they're good at hitting threes. And in a lot of games they do, sometimes they don't. And we talked about how much of a difference that was last time when Alabama Mississippi State played. But the Tide hit them yesterday, got a little bit from everybody. Brandon Miller with 18, Bediako and Gurley had 11. Noah Gurley had a pretty nice game. They're playing 21 minutes, 11 points. Quinterly had 10. Yeah, just so many. I think a lot of if you had any doubts about where Alabama was at, struggling a little bit the past couple weeks, that they left no doubt in that one as they were in control and took care of business against Mississippi State. Now on the flip side, a very thrilling game between Missouri and Tennessee. Missouri gets the win by 8 in that one, and there was kind of that situation where Tennessee all of a sudden jumps ahead, gets up. What I think it was 38-30. Yeah, I'm looking at the stats here. They're up 8, early in the second half. They kind of make that run, and you're wondering, oh boy, Missouri's got to find a way to hit some shots here. And they did. And of course, I put this also on Twitter. The number of clutch plays in that game from Demoy Hodge, from Kobe Brown, from Nick Honor, even DeAndre Golston, hit some shots early. I thought that were important. I mean, it was just there were so many. It was just sort of back to back to back, and it was a thrilling game. Again, I think that's the best way to put it. And we talked about Missouri being able to hit shots away from home early on. They could not buy a basket. That they got off to I think a bit of a rough start shooting the three, but they wind up going 10 of 26. Hit a lot of those big ones specifically in the second half. They shot 65% from two against Tennessee. Keep that in mind. Best defensive team, in the country statistically. So I think that's something to look at. Now, I will say quickly about Tennessee, and yes, guys, we're going to transition into the actual matchup with Alabama, Missouri. But as you know, mostly we do reaction videos, and then we also do kind of our preview videos. But I'm tying them all into one here. And yes, I'm flying solo again. Chris is putting the picks on me, so I know I got a few of those wrong on Friday. But again, this is the SEC tournament. You have no idea what to expect. So yes, we'll talk about one of those picks in a second because I think they actually won somebody some money by picking a team. We'll talk about that in a minute. But you know, I think if you look at just kind of what Missouri was capable of doing in that game, that is why I think we talk about the upside that Missouri has. When you have, basically, what Demoy Hodge and Kobe, I mean, combined for 50 points, right? 50 of Missouri, 79 points. And there were just, again, so many plays those guys made. And also, I think of the point I was going to make about Tennessee, there is just, to me, there's a clear difference with this Tennessee team without Zakai Ziegler and with him. And I think in this kind of game, you could see it. I think you could even see it a little bit against Ole Miss. Now, certainly you go back to the regular season and say the same thing about some of those games down the stretch. But I just think that it's evident to me in some of the rotations that Tennessee has to play that it just is one of those things where they are missing some of those intangibles that Guy Ziegler brought to the table. Maybe just as the starting point guard, as kind of the guy that can lead the defense. He can certainly hit some outside shots at times too. So yeah, I mean, credit to Vescovy, Meshack, those kind of guys. But Tyreek Key hit some big shots just like he did the last time against Missouri. But I just think, man, it's going to be interesting for Tennessee. I'm very curious to see what kind of draw they get in the tournament because I think that's going to be huge, as it is for everybody, but specifically this team, I think, without Zakai Ziegler. But once again, Missouri, Nick Honor, I put out the tweet that Dennis Gates talked about. Nick Honor came to him in the huddle late in that game, when he hit the big three. He basically said, "Coach, give me a ball screen." And Gates was like, "Hey, sometimes we don't, always listen to the player, but we listened to the player here. We gave him the ball screen. He hit the big time 3-point shot." So, yeah, again, clutch plays from Missouri there, and that's what they're going to need in this game against Alabama. If you go back to the first time these two played, were actually the only time they played in the regular season, January 21st. It was Alabama winning that game by 21. Now, if you watch the game, there was something missing. And that, of course, was Kobe Brown, who was still out injured in that one. So I think you kind of have to throw a lot out with that, knowing that Kobe Brown did not play. And as we just talked about, how kind of big that he is for them. And remember, too, if you take out Kobe Brown, Isaiah Mosley played in that game, had 19 points. Missouri just did not play well. They shot 3 of 28 from three. Let me just tell you up front, if Missouri shoots 3 of 28 from three against Alabama on Saturday, they are going to get beat and probably get beat by double digits. But I think that's nothing that anyone should be too surprised about right now. And just for reference, and Chris is always the guy that does this, but I'll do them for you guys. Like Alabama, as I'm seeing right now, is a 9.5 point favorite in this game. So that is at least worth noting there. Again, I think if we start to look at this matchup, it is hard to tell from the last game because there was no Kobe Brown. There was Isaiah Mosley for Missouri. One of the things that kind of stood out watching that game, just like in a lot of those type of games, Alabama was able to get a lot of offensive rebounds. And I think that, once again, to me, is going to be crucial. Tennessee only had 9 offensive rebounds against Missouri. I thought Missouri did a great job in that regard, not allowing Tennessee, a team that, again, shot the ball pretty well, actually, for the most part, but they didn't get a ton of second chance opportunities. Alabama's a different beast here because you look at kind of the strength of Alabama and knowing, that really in a lot of different scenarios, when you look at kind of what they can do to beat you, look back at the first game. Clowney had 5 offensive rebounds. A lot of other guys had offensive rebounds. We know Bediako can do that. Even some of their guards can rebound the ball okay in terms of getting some second opportunities. So I think that's certainly priority, number one, if not 1A, along with just for Missouri. I think being able to have those rotations defensively, knowing how much pressure Alabama is going to put on you with the way they play offense, transition defense is going to be very crucial for Missouri in this game. Can they, slow the ball down a bit? Can they get those defensive rotations when you look at kind of, again, what they're going to have to do to slow down Alabama? I think those are huge questions in this game to be able to slow down again. A team that yesterday, I think, just sort of showed, look, if you thought Alabama was coming into this tournament just to hang out and play around, they did not. They came out playing very well. And again, just sort of, you could almost say it felt like they won by 23, I guess it was. And it was also one of those games where I don't know that Alabama played its best either. Like, they still were able to win by 23. So, yeah, this is one. It's going to be a challenge for Missouri. And look, you guys know, if you're watching this as a regular viewer, I cannot contractually pick Missouri to win this game. I have to contractually pick Alabama because the Missouri fans are all in on the reverse mojo picks here. So the reverse mojo pick, I will not pick you, Missouri. I will pick Alabama because I have been asked by Missouri fans to do that. And so contractually, I don't have a choice. Speaking of contractually, I appreciate all you guys on Twitter asking me if I got a percentage of the contract extension that Dennis Gates received on Friday. I'll just offer no comment on that, guys. No comment. We'll talk more about that perhaps leading into the NCAA tournament. But yes, Dennis Gates did receive a contract extension, and some people asked, "Look, is this too early?" And I answered on Twitter. And look, it's anytime you have these scenarios. hey, there's a lot of jobs open, right? Cal's open, Florida State could come open, other top jobs could come open and throw a lot of money. You want to go ahead and take care of that business now because you don't want there to be any consideration after seeing what this guy has just done for your program. So, am I shocked at all by this? Absolutely not. It's been a pretty tremendous season for Missouri, 24 wins to this point, and yeah, so I think that was a no brainer for me. But again, for this matchup, I have to pick Alabama. And look, it's going to, like I said, it's going to be tough. I think for Missouri, just based on the matchup itself. And yes, we could have said the same thing about Tennessee. We could have said that about some of the other games they won this season. I really do. Like I look at Alabama. The one thing I think Missouri can do to really challenge Alabama here is to force turnovers because we have seen that at times with Alabama, just the way they play. This to me is probably going to be a high scoring game if Missouri is making shots. Because defensively, I don't know how much Missouri can do other than just force steals and get easy buckets off of turnovers to be able to, um, you know, slow down this Alabama team. Just knowing what they're capable of. So a lot of interesting elements, I think, in this game. But like I said, I think it's going to be a challenge for Missouri, just based on kind of just what Alabama can do to teams, and we've seen that so many times this season. Just the way that they will get up and down the floor. This will be a game that is up and down the floor when you look at just sort of how these two teams play. And I think it'd be very exciting if Missouri is making shots. But once again, it's going to be difficult to do against an Alabama team that still, I don't think, gets enough credit for how good they are defensively. Remember, Alabama, third in the nation in 3-point field goal defense, 27.9%. First in the nation, 2-point field goal percentage defense, 41.8%. So, can Missouri get those same looks? Can they convert on those looks? To me, that's the story of this game, depending on how it plays out. So, all right, to the other semifinal, Texas A&M versus Vanderbilt, and the Aggies able to rally against Arkansas. I think they were down 13 at half. Like I said, I picked Arkansas to win that game, and one of the elements that when you're picking these tournament games, you always have to keep in mind is does a team just eventually run out of gas? And the Muss Bus may have done that on Friday, and some of you guys pointed it out, rightfully before the game started. Could that be a situation? And I think if you look at the shot chart for Arkansas, and you guys know if you follow me on Twitter, I put this out there. Um, you look at Arkansas's shot chart late in that game as the momentum started to swing early in the second half, wherever it was. Kind of, I don't remember exactly when the time was when it would start to swing in A&M's favor, but Arkansas was forced to take a lot of jump shots and/or settled for a lot of jump shots. There may have been a little bit of a combination of both there, and they just could not hit jump shots. You looked at their shot chart, you could see all the X's besides the one that says jumper, and you could see all the checks besides the one that said layup or dunk. And I think A&M just forcing, and again, maybe Arkansas settling at times for jump shots. That was the difference, and that allowed A&M to kind of rally. And A&M did it making one 3-pointer. But they got to the free throw line as usual, 24, attempts there, made 18 of them, so 75% from the line. They also got 17 offensive rebounds. That was a big part of this game. A&M just dominated the glass. And again, that gave them a lot of extra opportunities in this one. And so that was the difference. Your usual A&M type game. Look, I mean, that's what we've said all season, right? Just the balance between all these guys and what they can do, whether it's Taylor, whether it's Radford, Dennis, Coleman, all those guys. They all scored in double figures in this game. And, for Arkansas, I thought that they just started to, when the momentum swung, they just could not make enough baskets, quite frankly. That they did not really, I think at times just attack, what AM was doing very well, and we know how, again, A&M, the way they play defense, we understand the challenges that can, put in front of you in terms of how you can attack it. But Arkansas, as we said, not a great shooting team, period. And especially maybe on game two, in 2 days, they're not making shots. And even they had some open looks, they just couldn't make them. And so I thought that was a big difference in that game. But once again, A&M, the number 2 seed, still, as we said, they keep doing it. And they get another win here, and now face off against Vanderbilt, who beat Kentucky. And quickly, I know I'll save this for a second, Justin. I know Justin's been our It Just Means More tier member. Justin has just always leaving the super chats, of course, in the live stream. He's been letting me know about some of his betting that he's done here recently, and so we'll talk about that in a second. But Vanderbilt beats Kentucky. They just keep doing it, folks. I mean, they do it again. And, they've now won 10 of 11. Uh, I mean, this was a game once, you're, when you get in these kind of games, to me, it is the stars. And, we say that just as in the star players that drive what you're capable of. Ezra Mannion, who have we talked about? I said yesterday, I said, this guy, the underrated, I think, just aspect of what he has brought to this team. I said he could be, I don't want to necessarily say just as important as Liam Robbins, but I don't know if you can say that at this point because he has just done a lot of good things. 25 points in this game against Kentucky in 29 minutes. I just thought he was terrific. I know he had some turnovers, but that's going to happen, throughout the course of a game, especially when you're playing a team like Kentucky. Um, Jordan Wright with 18, Tyron Lawrence with 18. Those are your three guys if you're Vanderbilt. Like, those are the guys, if you're going to make this run, if you're going to get into the NCAA tournament, which we're not going to have that discussion now. I know everyone has their different opinions on that. I said on Twitter, I said, put them in because I would like to see them in at this point because I think what they've done when you compare their resume to other bubble teams that are around them, there are some that I just find Vanderbilt's resume much more impressive. Will a committee think that? I don't know. It could very well take another win today. You guys know I've changed my stance on this quite a bit. Like, probably a week ago, I said, man, I think if they get 2 wins, they're in. Then probably Tuesday, I said, I think it may take 3. They may have to win the whole thing based on where the bubble's at. Where the bubble is right now, I'd probably go somewhere in the middle. I don't know what percentage I'd give it right now. I know there's some people who think that they're a lock. I don't think that they're a lock just yet. I do think they have a lot of positive momentum. I think this is just, again, such a huge game. But to beat Kentucky, to get another quality win, that is huge for a team that is on the bubble when you start to see what's going on around them. So, just was very impressed with sort of the poise in that game. As we talked about, I mean, I thought when you're playing Kentucky in that setting, Kentucky gets off to a great start, right? And yet Vanderbilt, very resilient, able to kind of weather that early sort of run from Kentucky, knowing that a lot of Kentucky fans there, but also a lot of Vanderbilt fans there too. And I just think it was so impressive to see what they did in this game. And once again, I mean, Jerry Stackhouse and his staff have done a tremendous job putting these guys in position to do what they're doing right now. And I think I would like to reiterate that the game planning, the in-game stuff from Jerry Stackhouse and his staff they are really, really good at this. And like, you can start to see that. Now, I know people say, well, go back to earlier in the year. They weren't playing this guy enough. Okay, that's fine. But like, look at where they are now. Like, you don't get there by luck. Vanderbilt's not where they are just by luck. They've done this based on, I think, a lot of game planning type stuff to put them in the best position to beat teams like Kentucky. And again, you look at the matchups. I told you, I thought if Casey Wallace played, I said, man, I may lean this in Kentucky's favor. If he doesn't play, probably lean in Vanderbilt's favor. But yet, it's kind of one of those games where Vanderbilt just did everything to kind of exploit what they could from Kentucky, in terms of just kind of hitting those gaps, and they did it. Yeah, hats off to Vanderbilt for doing it because they go 10 to 25 from three. Just shot the ball really well, made 18 of their 20 free throws, close game, made shots the free throw line. Kentucky went 11 and 20, 11 to 20. So it's just, I don't know what else you say about Vanderbilt, Kentucky. 0 bench points. I thought that was a huge kind of stat in this game, but the Commodores do it again, and now that does set up the matchup with Texas A&M. If you look at the numbers for this one, A&M, let's see, they opened as a 6-point favorite. I don't actually see the line right now of where that is. So very curious to see kind of what that's going to be. If we look at KenPom has this a 5-point game in A&M's favor. By the way, if you're looking, we talked about the spread on Alabama, Missouri. It's got Alabama as a 9-point favorite in that one against Missouri. So A&M by 5 here, according to KenPom. And I tell you guys, don't forget that these two teams played at the end of January, which it's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because, this was right before the game that Vanderbilt went to Alabama and lost by 57. Vanderbilt played at A&M. They only lost that game by 6. Remember, no Robbins in that one either. And if you want something that kind of stood out as I go back and look at this heading into this game, here's what Vanderbilt got. We just talked about Mannion, Tyron Lawrence, Jordan Wright. All right. Remember how important they are to this whole run they've had. Here's what they had from those guys in that game. Mannion had 2 points in 34 minutes. Lawrence had 2 points in 20 minutes. Jordan Wright had 15 points in 24 minutes. So think about how different that was then. Not getting really anything out of Mannion and Lawrence. But with the way those guys are playing now, that I think gives them a huge boost here heading into a matchup where they're going to need great guard play against this Texas A&M team because we know what they can do, as we talked about earlier, defensively. How will they force Vanderbilt to try to play their style, to play their way? I think that's a really big question here. And something else, again, with A&M, what are they really good at? They're good at kind of putting pressure on you, trying to force turnovers, but they're also good on the offensive glass. And I think we just talked about that against Arkansas. Vanderbilt, I think, needs to prevent those second chance opportunities because if you give them those extra opportunities, that's one of the reasons they're able to get to the free throw line a lot. And think about this too. We always talk about A&M shooting a lot of free throws. Here's something that may not be talked about enough when we say that. A&M is shooting a lot of free throws. They're making a lot of free throws because they're shooting 76.2% from the free throw line. That's 37th nationally in terms of their free throw percentage. So that is a crucial element to this game for Vanderbilt if they're going to win is they don't want to give them those extra looks because A&M is converting when they get to the free throw line. And so you don't want to give them those opportunities. On the flip side of that, I think if you're A&M, again, you look at what Vanderbilt can do. They don't turn the ball over a lot. They don't kind of beat themselves. And, you certainly know the kind of run that those three guys specifically we talked about, but you also know you've got other guys that can make shots on that team for Vanderbilt. And so I think, how A&M defends them will be very crucial because you kind of look at this streak they've been on. Look, they've made shots. And like we always say, that's a crucial part of it is that they're able to just knock down shots. You look at some of these games, I'm looking back here at sort of this run. Like I said, they won 10 to 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They've had 6 games in this stretch where they've hit at least 10 3-pointers. So can A&M limit those opportunities for Vanderbilt from the 3-point line? Because we've talked about all season, right? The SEC, not a great shooting league. If you're a team that can come out and just knock down some shots from three, that can be sort of the great equalizer. And I think that's a crucial part. I know it's easy to say, well, if they just hit threes, they'll be fine. But that is kind of a big part of it against A&M because you're not going to get a lot of easy baskets. As we said, look at what Arkansas had to do. It wasn't always just necessarily Arkansas taking shots to take shots. It was just that was probably the easiest shot available against this Texas A&M team and how they play defensively. So I think that's going to be a big part of this too. All right. So Justin, as I said earlier, told me on Twitter that he won $169. Nice. From betting against me because I picked Kentucky in the game, in the quarterfinals. So, Justin, here's what I'm going to do. This pick is just for you. All right. Because you won a lot of money picking against me, I think I'm going to give you that opportunity again because I feel like this is sort of we're entering Missouri territory here with Vanderbilt, where it's the reverse mojo may actually be working in your favor. So I'm going to try to give you the opportunity to do the same thing here by taking A&M. But I will tell you guys, I don't know if I want to do that because if you saw Jerry Stackhouse on the SEC Network last night and telling Dari Noka, Pat Bradley, Ron Slay that basically he wanted more respect. He wanted to be picked in these games. Justin, I almost feel like I need to pick him, but I think I want to try to win you some money. So I will go with A&M here. But look, for me, we always say I'm not a betting. I'm not a professional bettor. We're not professional bettors. We don't preview these games from a betting standpoint. We give you the spread and such, but that's not how we're doing it. I wouldn't want no part of this if I did because I think that Vanderbilt is a team on a mission, and I absolutely think there is a chance that Vanderbilt can be playing for the SEC championship on Sunday. And think about this, guys. I put this too on Twitter. Think about the scenarios that are in play here. Okay. So I mean, there are so many wild storylines. And like you can tell, like I'm like smiling because I'm like, this is so fun to look at these storylines. All right, here's the several storylines we now have in place given these Final Four teams. We could have a scenario where Alabama and Vanderbilt play for the SEC championship on Sunday. Remember, Alabama beat Vanderbilt by 57 points at the end of January, and Vanderbilt has been, quite frankly, one of the hottest teams in the country since that point. They could meet for the SEC championship on Sunday. Here's another scenario. Missouri and Vanderbilt. Missouri was picked 11th in the SEC preseason poll. Guess where Vanderbilt was picked? They were picked 12th. So we are now a Missouri and Vanderbilt win away from those two teams playing for the SEC championship. You've also got what? Alabama and Texas A&M, the two best teams in the league in the regular season. They are now wins away from playing each other once again in a rematch from the regular season finale where A&M won that game in College Station. they could play for the championship. And then as someone else put it out on Twitter, I didn't put this out last night because quite honestly, guys, it was just late. And I was like, I'm probably forgetting a scenario here, but the one I obviously did not mention was, and I don't know if this is, I guess for the Big 12, aspect, it's fun to think about, but maybe this would be a little bit lower in terms of kind of what the SEC traditionalists would think about this. But it is a good point. You also have Missouri versus Texas A&M for the first time ever, in the basketball conference tournament championship here. The two members that joined expansion, and so or conference realignment, whatever. And so that's another kind of fun thing to think about when you really look at it. So I think any combination you get here, it's going to be a very fun storyline to look at with these teams, the two teams that advance to the championship. And like I said, this is the point where sometimes you just see, those teams that have been like Alabama and A&M, who have been at the very top for pretty much a good portion of the season now, right? You just kind of see them with that next sort of gear, right? Like that next element that just kind of pushes them into this championship game because they are the ones that proved it time and time again throughout the regular season. But that we can't knock Missouri and Vanderbilt either because of what they've done to sort of get to this point. Both teams have put themselves in a position now to be one win away from playing for a conference championship and an automatic bid into the NCAA tournament. Now, of course, the three teams not named Vanderbilt don't have to worry about a bid into the tournament. But Vanderbilt, of course, hey, perhaps they leave no doubt and say, forget the bubble. We're going to go win the whole tournament. It's still in play, guys. It's still in play as of right now. So, yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. I'm just telling you, this is going to be a lot of fun to see how this plays out. And like I said, it may just be as simple as the two top teams advance and play for the conference tournament title. Or as we've seen, I don't know, a year ago, you may have a team like Texas A&M, who we saw last season, make the run that they did to get to the SEC tournament final. Could that be Vanderbilt? I don't think I necessarily put Missouri in the same category as A&M last year. But Vanderbilt, I think, would certainly there are some similarities, and I don't want to compare resumes, Vanderbilt this year versus A&M last year. But of course, when you think about the storyline, a team trying to play their way into the field, there are obviously a lot of similarities there. So yes, it will be a lot of fun to see how this plays out, and I am just looking forward to it because I think both these games could go either way. In all honesty, I think Missouri has a big challenge against Alabama just in terms of the matchup, but we said that about for Missouri many times before, and we've just seen those guys we mentioned earlier just step up time and time again and make some big shots and big plays. And then of course, I think Vandy and A&M. I said what was that spread? It's like 5 or something. I I don't know, guys. I think this is I have no idea what to expect in terms of which way this game's going to go, but I fully expect to be a good one because Buzz, you got the two SEC co-coaches of the year facing off here. These two guys are very, very good at the game planning strategy element of this sport, and I'm looking forward to it. So again, guys, we appreciate the support as always on the channel. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button as well. And we appreciate, again, all the support on the YouTube channel here covering the SEC tournament. Of course, we'll be covering the NCAA tournament as well. As of right now, we are planning to do our live stream for the selection show on Sunday. So as we did last year, I think we started about a half hour before the show started, went through some bubble scenarios, all that. It's going to be contingent on Chris's schedule. He's traveling. So either way, I will hop on and do it. Chris and I may both be on to do it. We'll make it work. So again, be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications. That way, if we do go live, you'll get that and know to jump on in and join us in the chat. So again, appreciate you guys as always. And for everything else, as we said, be sure to check out Southeastern 14 and follow us on Twitter at 14 Southeastern. You can follow me on Twitter at the Blake Lovell. And again, appreciate you guys. And we will talk to you again here soon on Southeastern 14.